He built it, they came. This is the Epic Brum podcast, and we're talking food, glorious food, with Digbeth Dining Club co-founder Jack Brabant. Digbeth Dining was first held in 2012 and has played a huge part in revolutionising Birmingham's food scene. It's now a permanent fixture in the east side of the city and has also expanded its footprint with spin-off events across the West Midlands and further afield. A cameraman and video editor by trade, Jack tells us how a drunken idea became a reality, spawning one of the UK's most popular street food events. Jack, thanks for coming on. How are things?
Yeah, not too bad. Just coming off a weekend where we just launched our click and collect service, which is our new approach during the COVID crisis to try and get people back to work in a safe environment.
Good stuff. I'm sure plenty of people have checked it out, and it's going to be very, very popular for as long as we're in the situation that we currently find ourselves in. So we're going to talk a little bit about you, about Digbeth Dining, Birmingham in general, and its culinary scene, but just as a bit of a starter for 10, for those who've never experienced Digbeth Dining, and if you haven't, then why not? But just give us a brief synopsis of what it's all about.
Yeah, of course. Digbeth Dining Club, we've been running it since 2012. We've obviously, as the name indicates, based in Digbeth. It's a street food event, and it's from its small beginnings, where we had one venue and 3 traders. We've grown that now to having about 70 to 100 traders on our books. We've got about, the venues have expanded in Digbeth, and we run a lot of events across the Midlands and festivals. It's a celebration of street food from around the world, and each week we always try and put on a little party and change what you have every week. So it's proved to be quite popular.
Indeed, and I think I heard you say before, it's born from a sort of drunken conversation, didn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, in my prior existence as running a video production company, I've been involved in sort of the filming and the rise of street food across the UK, especially in places like London. And one of the big things was, I was working as a freelancer for a company called the Nationwide Catering Association, which we are still attached to today. They help us with all of our sort of legal and health and safety side of things, and they look after a lot of the traders as well. And it was that relationship there that we were going down there and coming back to Birmingham and just going seeing this fantastic new industry rising out of the 2008 last crash, basically the last financial issues that we had. And it was that love of what we were seeing down in London, especially, that we wanted to recreate in Birmingham. So it was a lot of drunken nights, and we knew a few people around the city which we could approach. In particular, there was the Rainbow nightclub, people that were looking to open up a new venue, which was Spotlight. And we approached them with this mad idea, which was we want to create a street food nightclub, which to a lot of people, that no one really knew what the word street food was. So, they took a punt on us, and the rest is history, really.
So it's kind of a case you'd seen what was going on in London and elsewhere, and it was like, why can't Birmingham have something like this?
Yeah, you had your farmers markets. You start. Obviously, there was a lot of people that were noticing what was happening around the country, and there was a little pocket of fantastic street food traders. The likes of is the Meat Shack, who was we worked on our first one. Meat Shack, who's now got his own restaurant down in Chinatown. He was working out of farmers markets, and when we approached him, it just didn't take much convincing to get him around to what this crazy idea was. And luckily, a lot of people had a lot of faith in us, and it's been a fun 8 years.
Yeah, sure. I know. So your day job as a cameraman and video production, video production business that you had, has that just kind of taken a backseat completely now then because of the success of DDC? Or
yeah, the thing is that I was quite successful with it. I was working doing several different things, and this was always just a side project. Wanted to see if it would work, but as time's gone on, it got more and more successful. We expanded it across the Midlands, and we've done stuff around the UK. we've taken on our own sites, and we've expanded work-wise with staff and everything. So it's a full-time job now, and we despite what's going on at the moment, we've got some exciting plans for the future, and just sort of in a what's the word? We're in a cryo status. Let's go with that word.
Yeah, a bit of a waiting. Sure. How many staff have you got there then working on the Digbeth Dining?
Well, we work with a lot of people. We work with a lot of contractors. So it's not just the street food traders. We've got a lot of DJs and musicians that work for us. We've got a lot of contractors, and we have a team of about three or four, I think, off the top of my head. So, but hopefully, if we get bigger, we'll employ more and keep the industry going.
Absolutely. So, what made you confident then that Birmingham would embrace it? Could you sort of see a change, I guess, in people's dining habits and so on?
We didn't really see it for what it is now. I think as a whole, I think you could have to talk about the UK's eating habits have changed. I mean, you look at how food shows and chefs are celebrities, like how big of celebrities they are now. I mean, if you go back even 20 years ago, there was only really Jamie Oliver when he was doing The Naked Chef and stuff like that. And, I mean, that's a popular example. I mean, obviously you've got people like Keith Floyd and everyone. But the fact is that, I think the UK's consensus for food has really changed over the last 20 years, and people are far more interested in what they're putting in their mouth. They're not, they want to know about the history, and I think that's where street food plays a big part in that. I think that was what I was excited at myself. Really, was just sort of like the theatre that was behind it, that you saw when you would go down, and you can actually talk to the chef. You can talk about what the dish is. You can find out a little about why they're doing it. There's the story, and I think that it still interests me to this day. Just the story behind everyone's sort of desire to do this.
As you said, like those celebrity chefs, they're like rock stars now, aren't they? Or footballers, they're everywhere.
Yeah, and these are genuinely talented. Not saying footballers aren't talented, but I mean these are genuinely skilled people, and I think it's an art form in itself.
Absolutely. But I mean, do you think street food was something that the UK was perhaps a little bit behind the rest of the world in embracing?
To a degree, I think I think maybe it's a lovely sign of the multicultural side of the UK, and the different pockets of stuff that you have. I mean, my father was a journalist growing up, and he was based in places like Greece and Spain and America, and we would go off and try all these things all over the place. So I travelled a lot as a child and spent a lot of time abroad, and I think seeing that in around the rest of the world, it plays such an integral part to everyday life, and it's the casual side as well, because I think we've obviously got a fantastic restaurant scene in the UK, and I for one, it's my hobby going to restaurants. Me and my wife, I think every time there's a new opening in Birmingham, we all try and go in. So that's the fantastic part. But for a lot of people, the whole thing of sitting down in a restaurant it's not for them. I mean, it's just something like when places like Nando's is one of the favourite places for a first date, because it's not stuffy. It's not the right word, but it's more casual. And I think street food does it as well. And I think when we've seen a lot of people coming down of all ages, you can be of any age really, and the fact you can get food from different areas, you can have whatever you want from a different place, but it's going to be fantastic. I think sometimes you go to some place where just not to say restaurants who do food from all over the world are necessarily poor, but when you've got someone who's a specialist in that one thing, and you've got a series, you've got 10 all around the place, you can get something from each one, which you don't really get.
Exactly. And you alluded to just now that a central partner in all of this has been the Rainbow Venues and Spotlight down in Digbeth. So just tell us a little bit about the pitch that you made. to them with this kind of not radical idea, but it was something that
Well, obviously, like
people know.
the rainbow doesn't exist anymore. But it was just they had this. They'd just taken on a venue back in 2012, and which was to be called Spotlight, and they didn't know what to really do with it. And obviously, we came with this mad pitch, and it went from there. Really, I mean, it was about trying to explain it and showcasing what was happening in London. I think because obviously, you can see the explosion that it's had in London. It's on every street corner. And it was basically trying to say, like, this is the future, which was our pitch. And I think in some ways it's the prophecies come slightly true, shall we say.
Yeah, sure. They're great space as well, isn't it? The venue that you operate in.
I mean, obviously, it's expanded further. The guys who were in charge of it, they've taken it from Spotlight. You now got Mamaroo, which is the New Orleans street inside. You've got Cafe Collect, which is like a 1920s flapper bar, and you've got it's just called Unit 4, really. I think I think they've called it the Chicken Shop because we've got Only Jerkin based in there, which is one of the trainers. Yeah. They've got like a whole reggae sort of theme going throughout that venue. So and it's obviously we've got the big outdoor spaces and everything. So it's been a nice development over the last few years.
Yeah, Mamaroo is fantastic. It's probably my favourite venue in Birmingham, actually, as you say, with that kind of New Orleans vibe. And I've spoken to musicians who've played in there, who've come from the States and whatnot, and they've been like, "Wow, what a little like hidden gem this is."
Yeah. I mean, we've had some great times, and we've got some fantastic musicians who play. I mean, one in particular, we've got a fantastic singer, songwriter called Call Me Unique. She performs in there, and like on a Saturday night, and you've got this recreated street, people eating food, and you've got her playing absolutely amazing music. It's just it's something to check out if you haven't done. But even if I am being biased.
Yeah, sure. I think it's worth pointing that out to people. It's not all about the food, is it? Because you've showcased a lot of local live musicians and DJs as well. So
yeah, I mean, So I mean, the great thing is we're really lucky to work with some fantastic local musicians, DJs, performance artists, everything, and it's sort of become a bit of a badge of honour really for us that we work with. We really want to showcase some of our local artists in a platform where they can know that they can get a guaranteed audience, and it's part of the reason that obviously we do have a small door fee, but this all helps to cover for everything, and to pay for some of these fantastic artists to come and play for us.
Yeah, sure. It's amazing to think when you go back to that bank holiday, wasn't it, in 2012? That, but by all intents and purposes, I guess you thought this could just be a one-off, and now you're there. Is it 3-4 nights a week?
We're there. We run 4 nights a week now. So initially it was just a Friday night, and that first year was, the bank holiday. We organised it in August 2012, the bank holiday, and a load of people came up. I can't remember how many were, but at the time, my friend Mark, he was my sort of like consigliere. So he worked for the Nationwide Catering Association. So it was our concept that we created until about 6 months in. James, who's my business partner, became involved. But we really thought we'd cracked it. And we was like, wow, well, we've done this, and sort of, patted ourselves on the back and thought how wonderful we are. Thought, we literally just have to throw ideas and they come together. And then the next year was a real struggle. So it was actually, coming into 2013, it was actually the coldest Christmas or winter period that we'd had for a while, and it didn't stop snowing. It was heavy. I don't know if you remember, but it was heavy snow until about mid-March. So we eventually came back, and I think we were begging friends to come down for the first up until for almost a year. So we'd almost be paying friends to come down. And we'd think, if we sold, if traders had sold like 20 or 30 covers, that was a fantastic night. But it really. I think the time it really helped was when we won the British Street Food Awards in our first year, in 2013, and that was really like the catalyst for like propelling us to another sort of level, and it sort of gave us the confidence to do things, and I think we got a bit more media exposure. and and then year on year, it's just got better and better, really. And we've got some fantastic food traders that we work with, and they really, we've got there's some of their stories are brilliant. And how they've come about. And we've got people who've worked in Michelin star kitchens. We've got people who've come from factory floors, but they've all got a love of food and what they do. And I think each and everyone's story and how they came to working in the street food industry is brilliant.
That kind of leads me on nicely to what I was going to ask you about next. And I can't really ask you to pick out your favourites because you'll probably get quite a few disgruntled traders on your hands, won't you? Get lynched. But maybe you could just introduce us to some of the regulars that pitch up at DDC.
Yeah, I think there's some of the well-known ones. There's a lot. We've been really, we've been very lucky that we've worked with a lot of guys, and we've helped them get into restaurants. If they've gone onto the platform and gone onto there. I think probably the two famous ones in Birmingham are Original Patty Men and the Meat Shack, who've gone on and created two their own restaurants within the city. And we've got our own residents over at Digbeth. We've got Buddha Belly, who are resident traders, and they're brilliant. It's my go-to on a night because it's healthy. Yeah. And they've been working for about 6-7 years now, and the consistency is just unbelievable. Every meal I have is as good as the last one, and that is amazing skill, really, to be able to still do it that well.
To be honest with you, you say OPM and Buddha Belly, and I'm kind of salivating with just the mention of their name. To be honest with you,
yeah, we've been lucky. We a lot of the guys that we work with, the burger traders, they've all gone on to become best burgers in the country. So I think people are starting to think that we've got the ability to pick the best burgers. But the Midlands is probably, this is no word of a lie. We're very lucky in the Midlands. I genuinely believe we've got some of the best street food traders in the whole UK. We really put an emphasis on quality and the people that work for us. We do have a rigorous process of how we allow people onto the books, and over the years, we've done. I used to go and basically, when the early days, I used to go and trial the food and see if they were good enough in my eyes to get on.
Oh, what a job!
Oh well, yeah. There was one example. I was very lucky to be. I was very lucky to be good friends with friends with the chef of Simpsons, who's now based down in. He's down at the White Swan. Not the White Swan. Sorry. Can't remember. He's moved to the Cotswolds. But it was Nathan Eads, and I got him to come and taste food for me. So I think when Trader found out that they had a Michelin star chef trying their food, I think to test if they were good enough to go onto DDC, I think that was they were good enough. And that was Middle Feast.
You up your game, yeah, sure.
But we really put an emphasis on the food quality. Also, if people are likable, really. There's nothing worse than working with someone that's doesn't really fit in. So we see if they do it, and see if they've got a bit of theatre to what they do. The last thing people want to do is come and get food off someone who looks miserable or doesn't put any effort into what they're doing. They want that interaction. As I mentioned earlier, people want that interaction. They want to find out about what's going on, and that's really important, I think.
Yeah, and people love to know where their food's come from as well, don't they? And the story where the ingredients have come from, where it's made, etc.
Yeah. And I think more than ever, I think with this, with what's going to happen with this coronavirus, and this is just personal opinion, I think there's been a lot more emphasis on people buying local, supporting independents, and buying from that little shop that sells fantastic fruit and veg or anything like that. And I think I'm hoping that some of the positives that come out of all this is that we really put an emphasis on shopping locally and and being more sustainable.
Yeah, we spoke about it a little bit at the start. It's worth noting at the time of recording we're still kind of under strict-ish coronavirus regulations. But one of the positives, I guess, that's come out of it is that, especially for some of your traders is that they've been doing so well with the sort of takeaway and delivery services, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is that you know, the fact is that street food industry has always been able to be flexible and change its approach quite quickly, and cater to the needs. And I think the problem is that there were a lot of traders that fell through the gaps with what's happened. Not being able to be furloughed. There's a self-employed thing that they haven't been able to get covered for, or they've either, especially with some of our newer traders, they weren't covered. So they've had to think on their feet, and I think they've got out there, they've been delivering, and I think it's been brilliant. I mean, it's been a difficult period, but hopefully with our new process as well, with the click and collect, which we'll hopefully be expanding across the Midlands, then we'll be back in some shape or form until restrictions are relented.
Yeah, let's hope that's pretty soon. But you mentioned just about there's like a strict process to become a DDC vendor. So what is that? Is that process, and what are the volume of applications like? Because I mean, you've got to go through them, and then someone's got to go through that horrible job of going and trying all the food as well. So.
Yeah, I mean, we do have an online process. Like we do almost like not a background check, but we obviously we get the initial application. We try. What we've always tried to do is we've always tried to keep to a minimum any sort of replication of what we've already got. Always looking for something new, always something new for the customers' taste buds, really, or something exciting. And we don't want to have 100 pizza traders on our books. It's just replicating. So every time you come to an event, as best as possible, not always the case because I do make mistakes, but we try and make sure that there's something different. Every trader is offering something completely different, and that process is is something that we look for. So obviously traders can move on. Like there are some over the years that like they've gone to restaurants or they've decided to have a change of career. So we don't open our books very often, but we always try to introduce a small amount of new traders to keep it interesting. And basically the process there is like once we find something that we like, we'll probably send a secret shopper to go and try the food, see what the setup's like. We want something that stands out a bit. And just to sort of just get the general demeanour for how people are, as I mentioned earlier, it's important that you get along with people, that they fit in. The fantastic thing is that I really enjoy spending all my time with a lot of these people, and you spend a lot of time with people, and they've become more than just work. It's a friendly industry. Everyone that I know that and works for us and we're involved with it. There's a bit of camaraderie in everything we do, and we'll look after each other in different ways.
Yeah, proper community down there, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Did I read somewhere that on another interview you did that you looked into becoming a trader yourself, serving American crayfish?
That was another drunken idea, which I'm quite pleased that never really came off. Because seeing the amount of work these guys do, I think the thing is that when people come to one of our events, they see the end product really. They see that 5 hours of windows, and they see traders, and because we are busy, they think, yeah, great, this street food malarkey looks easy and it's fun, but the amount of hours these guys get at putting, like the early mornings, there's the weather to think about, there's the prep, for maybe 2 days work. Most times people are prepping for the weekend with us because they're going to probably sell quite a bit. They're prepping at the beginning of the week, so it's an intensive industry as well as a fun one. But the rewards are there. But I mean, after seeing like some of the work that some of the guys that work with us, the amount of hours they put in, and the blood, sweat, and tears, literally. I think any thoughts about becoming a food trader have been pushed to the side, shall we say?
And after the sort of initial success you've had down in Digbeth, you've kind of branched out further afield, haven't you? With events in places like Kings Heath and Longbridge, and even outside. Have you done them outside the West Midlands as well?
Yeah, I mean, we operate about 20 sites now. So, I mean, we've gone quite. We're working with the likes of Warwick Castle now. We were supposed to. I think we were supposed to put on one a couple of weeks ago. So, I mean, Warwick Castle is a huge one for us. King's Heath, not so much anymore. I mean, we've had to. Sites have become unavailable. Can't really use the street anymore. We were using Highbury Hall, but we would love to go back there. But we operate. We've got regular pitches in Coventry, Wolverhampton, Shrewsbury. We also run. We're associated with our own beer festival called Taps, which was supposed to be in its third year, which fortunately we were. It was the week of lockdown happened, so that put that to play to rest.
I was going to ask you also, you struck up a partnership with Aston Villa last year. Was it the Newcastle game? You had like a mini dining event before.
Yeah. So I think it was a Newcastle game, and then we were doing it up until lockdown. It's been great. I mean, we're a mixed bag of football fans we work for it. I mean, I'm a Villa fan, so and I'm a season ticket holder. So seeing our brand at Villa was a badge of pride, which is great. I mean, but it's been received well, and so I think sporting events are one of those things where we try and bring our own sort of festive sort of thing where we were bringing like some people like the Heavy Beat Brass band. I can't remember, sorry, the name of the band. But we had brass bands playing, and we had dole drummers come into play, and we'd have champion keepy uppy players doing stuff variously. So it's just trying to create a little bit of a party atmosphere before the game, really. And hopefully, if Villa do stay in the Premiership, we might be there next year.
Did they approach you then, or did you pitch it to them?
They actually approached us. So it was a lovely for me. It was very nice to be invited, and
so it's a pat on the back, isn't it? Really for your work.
I mean, my business partner is a Wolves season ticket holder, James. I mean, I don't think he's too happy about it, but he's put it aside for the better of what we can. And hopefully we could do it with more football teams in the Midlands. I mean, we're very lucky that over the years we've worked with some of, especially with Birmingham, we've worked with some of the city's best institutions, and I really love it. I mean, we've been doing stuff with like Town Hall and Symphony Hall, the International Dance Festival, and we've got some plans for next year to work with more institutions in the city. And I think that's the exciting thing about Birmingham nowadays is that there's so many great things happening in the city.
There are indeed. But going back to the football thing, it kind of demonstrates again, really, it's another example of how people's attitude towards food has perhaps changed, because you used to think of going to the match as being it was like a stereotypical pie and a pint, wasn't it?
Well, I'm not going to lie. I mean, I do love a botty pie. I mean, and it's mine and my brother's guilt pleasure. I've got to have a botty pie before the game. Though they do keep on running out, so maybe just us bringing our own food has helped as well.
And I wanted to ask you a bit about how Digbeth Dining kind of fits into the bigger picture of Birmingham's culinary scene. Because, I mean, the variety of like cuisine that's on offer at your events, as you've mentioned, I guess in some respects it tells you a lot about the Birmingham's culture and fantastic diversity that it sort of prides itself on, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you let's go back 30 years. If you talked about Birmingham's food scene, you'd have talked about the Balti Triangle, and that would have been the only thing with the real selling point. I think now we've got all these Michelin star restaurants. There's some fantastic chefs who are not Michelin star, but they've got doing fantastic things. But I think the fact that we've got so many Michelin star chefs is just, it's so exciting. And then what we do is we're at the other end of it, but it's still offering a similar service, and it's it's great to see more and more people coming down to Digbeth. If you're into food, Birmingham is the place to be outside of London, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it's just I get really excited about it because obviously there's more and more restaurants have been opening up in the past, so there's been more and more things to try.
Yeah, sure.
So I mean, it's great. It's just great. I mean, I love it.
Yeah, I mean, what you're doing, it kind of fills in so many gaps in the local food scene as well. Because, I mean, as you rightly said, it's great that we've got 5 Michelin stars. It's 5, isn't it now? 5 Michelin stars. Some top end chains as well, like your Gauchos, the Ivy and whatever. But I mean, this what you're offering is something really different, and because you're kind of getting the same quality, but perhaps a bit more diverse. But also at the same time, it's like relaxed and unpretentious, as you kind of alluded to earlier on.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and I think it feels a great market. I mean, what Birmingham does well is great independent restaurants and eateries. There's like I think you've got your chains, but majority of people I know like they like them, but they've got so much choice when it comes to the independents, and I think that's something we've really got to hold on to. And hopefully the majority will come. Hopefully everyone will come through this. What's going on, and but it's just that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to cater to the needs of everyone really, and I think that's alluded to earlier. The fact is testament that you can. One of my favourite things I see when we've got Digbeth Dining going is the fact that you can see people of all age ranges in a family. So you've got your grandparents coming along with, and everyone can be comfortable. It's really good.
Yeah, I think the best thing about it for me is, I mean, you can kind of finish a day out there. You can start a night out there. You often see people popping in before or after they've been to the football. And I think, best of all for me is the fact you can bring your dog along as well.
Yes, yeah. I think that's that was a decision made really because I got my dogs. So I was like, well, if I want to bring my dogs, so it sort of became part of the rule. But we even do a dog focused event called Digbeth Dining Club every so often. Because we do a bit of fancy dress and it's great. I mean, when you've got loads of dogs, but it's just the clean up afterwards really, which is the issue.
Who makes more mess, the customers or the dogs?
Well, as an avid dog owner, I'd say it's the customers.
I was also going to say that you kind of slot in really well with the vibrant scene that Digbeth has got now as its own little quarter. You've got Ghetto Golf, you've got the custard factory and everything that's around there, and you've got some really cool little bars as well that have opened up, and it kind of it's created a nice little cluster, hasn't it? I mean, that Dead Wax bar that's opened is fantastic, and played loads of little places like that, and some of the old fashioned pubs as well.
Yeah, I mean, when we first started in Digbeth, it was mainly just focused on sort of the club nights, really, and then there was the medicine bar back in the days, but there wasn't really anything going on per se. Like you obviously had the Old Crown, which was brilliant. There was pockets of stuff when we first started, and we had to. But I think there was still that sort of that tag that Digbeth wasn't a great place to go, and that was the big battle for us, was persuading people that actually come down here. It's going to be this is somewhere you can come and hang out, and seeing what's being developed. It's fun. There's a lot of people coming in, which is good for the area. It's good for us. I think the most important thing is that people feel safe. I think Digbeth used to have this reputation that it was quite dangerous. And when you've got families walking around, but afternoon or late at night, not late at night, but at various times. I mean, it shows that that side has changed now, and I think it's a real positive. I mean, there's obviously a lot of development coming into the area, so you just hope that obviously that what's been there previously will be respected.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think Digbeth's the place to be myself. I mean, my days of clubbing and whatnot are long gone, but anyway, that's by the by. So, what about your sort of personal relationship with Birmingham? Because you mentioned before that you've lived away for quite some time and in a few different places. So, I guess did you move back just as the sort of Renaissance was starting?
Well, I wasn't born in Birmingham, but my mum moved here back in the late '80s, so I was only a small kid. So it's all I've ever really known in terms of growing up prior to everything. But as I mentioned earlier, with my dad, he always lived abroad, so I spent a lot of time as a kid living in places like Athens and Miami and everything. But then, when I went to university in Manchester, it's probably the longest time I was away, and that was about 8 years, I think, and just ended up after finishing university, lived there. but moved back in 2008, and it was from where I moved away, the scene had changed completely. It was you could see the development. I think I missed Manchester for a long time, and I'm certainly my friend missed his time in London. I think that was partly why we wanted to start up Digbeth Dining Club, because it was like we wanted to create our own little piece of what we wanted from the city, and obviously, but now it's as I mentioned earlier, again with all the independence. I mean, I couldn't imagine moving anywhere else now. I think there was at least initially, I couldn't imagine moving anywhere else in terms of, unless I really need to. But my wife, she's originally from Kenya, and she loves it here, and I think this is where we're going to properly settle, because it's got so much to offer. And I look at people like places like London, and as much as it's got more, and it's a different thing, it's just not as appealing. I think you've got so much option to have a great time in Birmingham, but also have a really nice lifestyle, and I think that's a rarity in many major cities across the UK. And I think Birmingham always used to get a bit of a kicking in the past, but I think it can hold its head high against anywhere else now, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it did used to get a bit of a kicking, but I think the people are quite self-deprecating as well, so they've probably just taken it, and rather now I think they're a bit more, everything that's going on a bit more confident, bit of a swagger going on that perhaps they didn't have before. But it's really nice to hear when somebody who's spent time in a lot of places says that they couldn't imagine being anywhere else. But finally, just wanted to wrap up by asking you, and it's something that we finish all our interviews with. This is the Epic Brum podcast, so wanted to ask you, what makes Birmingham epic?
I think what makes Birmingham epic is its people. Genuinely, I think you've just alluded to that. I think it's the self-deprecating side of it, and not taking themselves too seriously. I think that's why it's becoming really exciting. I think the fact it's got a young population is going to make it the place to be, and I think you can see that with everything that's going on in the city.
Fantastic. Well, Jack, thank you very much for taking the time out to do the interview, and hopefully we'll be able to come down and pay you a visit soon for a nice burger or some slow cooked lamb or whatever else happens to be on offer.
All right, I look forward to it.
Thanks for tuning in to the Epic Brum podcast. If you like what you heard, you can find more episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever else you get your podcasts. And don't forget to follow us on social media at Epic Brum HQ.